Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Outliers YouTube and podcast series, Get to Know. I'm your host, DP Lyle, and I'm here with my cohort in crime, Kathleen Antrim.
Thanks, Doug. It's great to be here. We've got a fabulous interview for you today. We've got a best-selling and award-winning author with over 20 books under her belt. We've got Kaira Rouda. Welcome to Get to Know, Kaira.
Thank you. Thanks for having me here, you guys.
It's wonderful to have you. And as Doug and our viewers know, I like to start off by laying you down on the couch and asking you a few probing questions. And the first one I want to ask is about your childhood. I would like to know if you feel your childhood contributed to you becoming an author. Were you an introverted child, an extroverted child, an athlete, a reader, both? Did you have imaginary friends? Tell us.
Well, let me tell you, it did contribute to me becoming a writer. My dad was a professor and my mom was an elementary school teacher. So I grew up surrounded by books and going to the library. And I actually had a third grade teacher who had us write to the person we wanted to be when we grew up. And I wrote to Robert McCloskey of Make Way for Ducklings and Blueberries for Sal. And he actually wrote me back and he said, Dear little Kara, thanks for writing. I'm a illustrator, not an author, so choose better next time. But something like that makes you remember what you're doing. And I also had a great librarian in fifth grade, Mrs. Gardier, and she laminated my first full-length novel called Scooter and Skipper's Great Adventures, and she put it into the elementary school library. And I can still remember the feeling of like having people be able to check out my book. It was really fun. So yeah, so I did know from a young age that this is what I wanted to do.
That is so cool. So you know that you want to write. Did you go to college and study creative writing, or did you have another career, before you got into writing? How did this progress?
Yeah, how much time do you have? This I would say is, I used to say this is my second act, but in truth, it's probably like my fifth or sixth act. But I did go to school. I went to Vanderbilt and I studied English literature. So not a lot of writing. And I don't think I would have had confidence to write anything for publication. My first like byline was for a newspaper. So I kind of went into journalism first, newspapers, love magazine writing. I just absolutely love that format. So I did magazine newspapers. I was a society columnist for Columbus, Ohio for 10 years, did that. Along the way, I also always, as a kid, wanted to be Darren Stevens on Bewitched. I didn't want to be Samantha, the magical one. I wanted to be Darren for some reason in advertising. So I also had a pretty full career in advertising. And I think I wrote every type of copy there was, from press releases to appliance manuals to, I did just everything, radio spots, TV spots. And so I did that. And then at some point along the way, also 4 kids. And then I've been married to my husband a long time. That's why I write marriage thrillers. And then I ended up running a company with my husband. We started the first residential real estate company to acknowledge that women make or influence 91% of all home buying purchases. And at the time when we launched Real Living into the world, all of the advertising from all the big brands was 2 white men shaking hands in front of a yard sign. So we kind of turned the industry upside down. As a result, I was asked to write a nonfiction book, which was my first published book, and it was called Real You Incorporated, 8 Essentials for Women Entrepreneurs. So I found out doing that you have to go on the road to promote said book, which I hadn't calculated because, to go back to your first question, introvert. And so I had to hire a speech coach, and all of a sudden I find myself on this tour across the country, and I'm like, everything I know is in the book, just read the book. But anyway, so I'm speaking to a big group of women in Austin, Texas, and a woman raises her hand and she says, so have you done it? Have you done everything you're telling us to do? Because my whole message was it's never too late to live the life of your dreams, and you got to put your passions into action and get going. And I'm like, I still haven't written that novel. And she's like, what are you waiting for? I'm like, you're right. So that's when I actually got, I guess, kind of encouraged by a stranger to go ahead and sit down and tackle the dream.
You got encouraged by your own speech.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
I was busy saying, but not yet.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So how long did it take you to get published the first time?
Well, see, I'm not very patient. And the problem is with the whole marketing background, I'm like, oh, this is taking forever. So, my first novel is called Here Home Hope. And I had an agent and she was submitting it. It was more of what they call women's fiction, which I don't like that label, but that's what it was called. And anyway, I'm like, this is taking forever. Isn't there a way to publish a book otherwise? And so I found Greenleaf Book Group, which is a hybrid publisher where you pay them and they work with you. And I love my editor there. Anyway, so my first book was published through them. So, and I do say I've done like every type of publishing. So after that book, then I had 2 self-published books, which was kind of fun because I got to learn about algorithms and how to work with all the Amazon things. And I don't know, that was fun. And then I was working on another novel for a new agent about a group of women tackling school lunch and creating this, it was like very sweet women's fiction when this character, Paul Strom, popped into my head, and he would eventually become Best Day Ever, my breakout book. And that one sold to Harlequin HarperCollins and actually led an imprint. And that was kind of when I skedaddled to the dark side, as I say, and I've stayed there ever since.
So are you still with Harper?
No, so then I did 2 books with them, and then Amazon Publishing came knocking. So I did 5 books with Thomas and Mercer, and then I did 2 books with Bookature, and now I'm back to traditional publishing side with Jill Is Not Happy with Scarlet. Yeah.
Wow. I mean, what a journey.
It has been. And you know what? I figure like you really do learn something new each place that you go. And I look at people who've been with their publisher for, 19 books or whatever, and that's magical. I don't know that a lot of people have that opportunity to stay like the shiny item with a single publisher. So I've enjoyed every step in the process. It's completely nonlinear, but so far so good.
Yeah, I agree with that. I probably had 6 or 7 publishers, and they're all different.
Yeah.
And, from Wiley and St. Martin's and Putnam and Ocean View, they're all different.
Yeah.
They're all different.
And you learn something new with each one because they all have a different type of focus or like a different way of marketing. And if you're open to that and, they want to work with you on a book, I think, why not? So,
yeah, absolutely. So, speaking of dark psychological thrillers, I'm going to say up front that I'm not sure I've run across a more appropriately a titled book in my life because Jill is not happy. Jill was never happy. Jill is never gonna be happy. No way, no how. Get out of the way. She is ruthless, but you love her to death and you just wonder what on earth is she gonna do next. So tell us about how Jill came about in this story.
yeah, Jill, Jill could be happy as long as her husband Jack stays in line. Like Jill is happy if she and Jack have what she envisions as their perfect relationship, which of course is probably a lot in her head. But that is what she would be. Well, Jill popped into my head, which, as I mentioned, my husband and I have been married a long time. And during the pandemic, we took a road trip to the Utah National Parks. And while we were there, it's just stunning scenery and everything's magical. And there's red rocks and sculptures. And you get to Bryce Canyon and the sun's setting. And there's these creatures called hoodoos, which are like sandstone sculptures down in the canyon. Right. Yeah, and the sun's setting. It's getting really creepy with all the shadows. And my husband looks at me and says, I know what you're thinking. I'm like, yeah, this would be a great place to kill somebody, don't you think? And he's like, you worry me. But anyway, yeah, so the setting kind of came to life during that trip. And then Jill kind of popped into my head, and the original title was Marital Privilege. So the notion of what's happened between a couple, you can't be compelled to testify against each other as long as you stay married. So, which is not as good as Jill Is Not Happy. I love that.
No.
Title. Yeah, but that's kind of like the principle that popped into my head. So then I was kind of off and running.
Yeah, no, Jill Is Not Happy is perfect. And one of the things I like is she, through the whole thing, always calls him handsome. Not his name. Why don't you do that, handsome? And it's almost like, that little.
Yeah, like she definitely says that with a little. Yeah.
Yes, like, she does. Yeah, and it worked. It worked very well. Because I can see him grinding his teeth, too, at the same time.
Absolutely.
Enough's enough.
Absolutely.
Well, obviously they have secrets. I don't want to give away too much of the book because everybody should read this book because it's like watching a slow train wreck. And they have secrets. They have a past. Something happened, and that's their thing that
Yeah.
they're dancing around. But then it gets worse and worse and worse as things go on, and I really like that. So you like to write about people with wealth and success and happy lives, and then a darkness moves into the room and bad things happen. Is that because you live in the OC or because you spent time inside the Beltway?
I think it's all of the above. I like to say no matter, and also a long time in Columbus, Ohio suburbs. So,
Yeah.
whether it's inside the Beltway in DC or beautiful Orange County or the suburbs of Ohio, there's a lot of the same themes and a lot of the same angst. And we all know the perfect marriage is the perfect illusion. And even if we want to believe that, I had a chance to go to 4 destination weddings in May, and there's just nothing like a wedding. You're watching these people, everything's perfect. And these weddings were all different ages, all different places. And I'm like, wow, there's just so much, we all believe in that potential and that everything's going to turn out perfectly. And we all know it's not.
No.
So I think that's why I like marriage thrillers because one, I think people read them and say, well, goodness, at least I'm not Jack and Jill.
Exactly.
At least that's not me. I mean, I thought we were bad. That's not, yeah. So that's fun. And, it does, we all have those feelings, I like road trips too, because it puts a couple side by side in like contained space. And that's really aggravating if something's on your nerves already. And then you just, that's very, anyway, so hopefully relatable, but also Jill pushes it a little far. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. You think?
Yeah.
But that's why spouses get murdered in rural service stations,
Oh, well, yeah.
Because they've been in a car for 3 hours.
Right. Yeah, and just the subtleties. Like I imagine Jill sitting there with her. She has a Story of Us book that kind of might look like this, and then she has a pen. So whenever she's really trying to aggravate him, she like leans up, tickles him under the chin, and you just can feel like he's going to explode. Yeah,
exactly. Well, it's really well done, and they're 2 great characters, and it is a fun but creepy story, and it does keep your attention, I guarantee you. And I won't give away the ending because I did not predict that ending. We can talk about it off the air. I predicted something different, but
oh, good. I like to surprise you.
Yeah. But it was a good ending, and yeah. Okay. So what's next for you? What are you working on now?
Yeah, what are you working on?
I have another book coming out in February, and I know I'm excited. This is another publisher. It's with Source Books, and it'll be our first book together, and it's called We Were Never Friends. And it's just, a little sinister in the title as well. It is the story of a group of sorority sisters who something terrible happened senior year, so they haven't kept in touch. In fact, they've drifted far away on purpose, when suddenly one of their sons is marrying one of their daughters, so they're forced to reunite. And and then bad things happen.
Of course.
Oh, wow.
Well, we want you back for that.
Okay.
Yeah, absolutely. So give us a shout out when, a couple of months ahead, we'll set something up and we'll get, oh yeah, that sounds delicious actually.
Yeah. It's fun. And it's set in Palm Springs. I'd never set a book there before. And that's a really fun setting, like the movie colony with all the old,
Oh, sure. Yeah.
I just want to know what makes a mind work like this.
I know. I know. I think, I mean, all seriousness, I think it is just because when you're trying, it's cathartic. It helps me kind of process the world and the things that do go on. I mean, not that I know anybody like Jill, but there's parts of Jill that might remind me of people around. And it does when it's a character form, then you kind of have the control. Except for, I will say my characters scare me because I'm a pantser. So I'll be writing and all of a sudden I'm like, oh my gosh, I have to slam shut my computer, run downstairs. So they do get carried away sometimes. But I do think that's what crime fiction does in general. It gives you a little sense of control. When you're reading a book like this, you can always close it and put it down. But I think that's.
Have you always been a pantser? Is that how you started?
Yep.
Yeah.
I'm pretty much a firm pantser. I mean, I've tried, I just can't do it.
Yep.
So
I outlined early the first few books, and I found that it was a job.
Yeah.
It was too hard.
Yeah.
And then once I outlined it, I didn't want to write it because I already knew the story.
Exactly.
I
It's
said,
no
I'm bored.
fun.
This is now work. And that's not what I'm doing this for. I'm doing this for fun. I said, yeah. So I just said,
Exactly.
okay, just start writing something, see what happens. Been doing that way ever since. Can you
Yeah.
write yourself in a corner? Can you get, twisted like a pretzel? Sure. But you can always fix it.
Yeah, it's
Yeah,
your
yeah,
story.
yeah.
Like I have on my wall, it's your story. You've got this. And
Yeah.
it's true. Like if you just keep believing in yourself and your characters, they'll work themselves out.
Oh, absolutely. Well, the other
Love
thing I
that.
want to say is I absolutely love the cover.
Oh, I know.
I mean, it's so dramatic.
It's so good. And just, my publisher, Scarlet's been great because they really wanted, I had a whole long line of pouting women on my covers. I don't know if you can see them behind me, but I'm like, I really don't want another pouting woman on my cover. And they're like, we don't want that either. And so we worked, it was really collaborative, which was so fun. I don't know if it was fun for Charles, the designer, but eventually, Jill in the book is very fond of salads and growing things in her hydroponic tower. And so I was sending them salads, like whenever I saw salads. So at first we were thinking like it was going to be a close up of a salad. And then he did this, which is great with the
Oh,
flower that's kind of really important to the story too.
yeah, yeah. It jumps right in your
So
face
cool.
and it draws your eye right there. It's very cool.
Yeah.
So, Kaira, tell us where our viewers and listeners can find your books.
Yeah, pretty much anywhere, which is great. I have been having so much fun. I just went on my first book tour in like 8 books and, just to bookstores again. So bookstores everywhere, which is so fun to say again. And and then you can find me online at KairaRouda.com and all the social media stuff, except it's just, there's a lot of social media places, but I'm mostly focused on not TikTok, Instagram and Facebook.
Yeah. Yeah. Those seem to be the big hits right now. TikTok, though, obviously is pretty big too.
It is really big. And I get over there and I'm just nervous about the whole thing.
I haven't quite mastered it either. I completely hear what you're saying. But it's been great having you. You're fantastic. I can't wait to have you back for the next one.
Yes.
Thank you. Yeah, I'd love to
Having
be.
been in a sorority, I'm really interested.
Yeah, I was in one too. And I actually, I've been running into friends on this book tour and I talk about the next book and they're like, what? Don't worry.
You're not in it. Yeah.
It's not about you. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, you might be in it, but you're only there for a chapter.
Right.
And then you're done.
And then you're
done.
gone.
Yeah. But yeah, for sure. We've got to have you back.
Yes.
And I want to ask our viewers to please click that thumbs up. It really helps with the algorithms and gets these interviews out into the world. And if you like what we're doing here, please subscribe. It's free. And I'll throw it back to you, Doug.
Well, thanks everybody for being here. Thank you, Kaira, for being here. It was a delight. Good to see you again. It's been a while. Everybody go buy this book because it will keep you entertained and a little squirmy and uncomfortable, which is what we're supposed to do as writers, I think. So until then, this has been Get to Know on the Outliers YouTube and podcast series. And as you know, we'll be back with more interviews. So until then, keep reading, keep writing, keep having fun, and try not to get caught.